Okay, so this is going to be sort of a model introduction and trade breakdown style of video. This is going to be the LSCB model. So liquidity, SMT, CISD, and breaker. I'm going to go through 3 different trades. So this will be something you need to refer to if you see this model being talked about in the threads, in the discussions, whatever. Okay, so first trade here we have the liquidity. In terms of liquidity, the liquidity we have here is the 1 hour bullish fair value gap, right? So this would be the liquidity. SMT is a crack in correlation between two closely correlated assets. So for gold, we are going to refer to silver. For Euro USD, we're going to refer to GBP USD. Same thing for GBP JPY, you refer to Euro JPY. These are closely correlated assets. Last one on my mind will be AUD USD and NZD USD. So in terms of SMT, right, we have a crack in correlation at these lows, which tagged the BSI. Why? Because the bottom one is the silver chart. You can see we left behind this BSI on silver. We created a higher low. On gold, we created a lower low. So that's SMT. So that's step 1 and step 2 of the model done. Right? Now, all we need to look for is step 3, which is our entry confirmation. So in this case, what I looked for was a 5-minute change in state of delivery. What a change in state of delivery is basically just an order block being confirmed. So in this case, these 2 down close candles, right, these series of down close candles will become a bullish order block once we close above it. So at this candle here, when we closed above it, is where I set a limit at the CISD area. Stop is at the low. Target was this high over here. So what happened was my fill was slightly better. It was around here. But what happened was we pumped up around 35-ish pips, went back down, stopped me out at break even, but I took partials here. Why did I take partials there? This is another thing that I'm going to explain more in the later part of this video. But on the 1-minute chart, we also have a 1-minute breaker. So from the breaker, I use this Fibonacci tool with these different settings, right? You can pause here. These are the settings I use. And I let these levels dictate where I partial. -2 is where I take my first partial every single time. So the moment price pumped up, I took a partial at -2. Then I shift my stop to break even. Price came down, stopped me out at break even, all part of the plan. We then rallied higher later to hit whatever other standard deviation projections we have. So that's the first trade. Okay, so next trade will be this, right? This 12 o'clock candle is New York lunch session. Okay, a New York lunch session is a key liquidity pool. So in this case, on gold, we took out New York lunch highs. On silver, that same New York lunch high, we failed to take it out. So again, this is your liquidity, New York lunch high. Your SMT is this. We took out the high, creating a higher high. But on silver, we created a lower high. So again, liquidity, SMT, done. Now you find your CISD or breaker. If you try and find a CISD here, your entry is all the way down here, which would mean your stop loss is going to be like 100 pips, which is not very suitable for my personal style, right? I wouldn't want a 100 pip stop loss for these kind of trading plans. So I drop to the 1 minute and look for a bearish breaker. So bearish breakers are here, right? You have 2 breakers to choose from: high, low, higher high, lower low. Again here as well: high, low, higher high, lower low. The key thing about the breaker is that it needs to close below the swing in order to validate the breaker. So for example, at this point, we have not confirmed the breaker yet until we close below, which is this candle over here. This one. So the moment this candle closes below the swing point of the breaker, that is where you can look for your entry. So again, same thing, entry at the breaker, stop at the swing high, target whatever you want to target. In this case, not to confuse the standard deviation projections, in this case, again, you let the standard deviations dictate where you're going to partial, where you're going to TP. Over here, when we hit -2, you can partial there. Alternatively, you see this very, very minor sell side liquidity here. Right above -2, you can partial there as well. That's where I told everyone who was in this trade where you can possibly partial over here. Then -4 is where you would take out a large majority of your position. So let's say -2, you can take out 20-30%. By the time you hit -4, you should have removed like 80% of your position already. Of course, there's more nuances, but not to confuse everyone, this is just how it normally should be. So this was the short. For longs, again, we need to go through the same process, right? Liquidity, SMT, CISD, or breaker. The liquidity here in this case was your previous hourly low. Why? We swept previous hourly low on gold. The SMT is also at that area. Why? Because previous hourly low on silver was not tapped at all. So that is SMT. We created a lower low on gold, a higher low on silver. So again, same thing, liquidity, SMT, done. Now you just need to look for your breaker or change in state of delivery. Again, if we go through change in state of delivery, your entry would be at this level, but we never came back to retest it, so you would miss it. So if we look at breakers, again, you have two breakers here. You have a larger breaker. I'm just going to remove all of these. You have a larger breaker from this swing high, Y, low, high, lower low, higher high, same thing. You also have a smaller breaker here, low, high, lower low, higher high. So you can choose either of these breakers to enter on, right? The moment we close above the swing on this candle, it validates the breaker. You can just mark it from here. So you mark it, you would target whatever other liquidity you have, right? The other entry from this larger breaker, again, you have to mark it from here, swing low, target whatever. And again, you're going to let your standard deviations dictate where you're going to partial. So for instance, if you entered off of this smaller breaker over here, you will notice you have already hit -4. You would take a partial at -2, you would have probably taken a partial closer to -2.5 to -3 because this candle pumped very aggressively. And then you would take another huge partial at -4, and then you just let the rest of the position do its thing. So if you don't understand anything, just rewatch the video. Okay. You need more nuances, you'll only be available on streams.